Welcome in, everyone, to the What Comes First podcast. I'm your host, Keith Canner, and I am super pumped for our guest today. The reason I'm pumped is I will need no afternoon coffee. You saved me $5, Joe.
Good,
Uh,
good.
he's the guy you hate because he brings all the energy in the room. His likability factor is through the roof. My guest is none other than Joe Wilson. He's the founder of Social Coach. It's a platform that allows the real estate community the ability to centralize and communicate out social media across all platforms, compliant in a really systematic way. And that's a lot of corporate speak. What it does is it makes social media easy, but more importantly, impactful and effective. And really, Joe, I looked through your bio on LinkedIn, just an incredible diversity of work experience. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Oh, thanks for having me, Keith. I really appreciate being here, and our association is awesome. I love it.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Before we get started, I'm going to put all the pressure on you to tell all the stories, but I do have one quick story to tell. Back this fall, I was really kicking the idea around about doing a podcast.
Yep.
And I had a lot of doubts in my mind, like who's going to listen? What impact will I have? Will it be a big flop? And I was really nervous. And you sent me an invite and you said, "Hey, if you're coming to the Nashville Mortgage Bankers Association convention, let's sit down and record a quick podcast and let's have some fun." And I was like, okay. And so I showed up, and you and Josh Pitts, we just had a blast for about 15
We
minutes.
did. It was
And
awesome.
it was really fun. And while that was fun, it was really afterwards, you both took the time to really give me the encouragement. And I was probably 75%. You guys closed the gap, pushed me over the edge, and here we are doing a podcast together.
That's awesome. This is your third one now, right?
Yeah, something like
Yeah,
that.
something like that.
So
That's awesome.
yeah, it's really cool. But I just want you to know what an impact you had with me.
Well, I really appreciate that, Keith. And you're a guy I look up to as a amazing leader in the mortgage industry. And it's fun to be able to share our expertise with one another. And you've got all the right makings of doing a podcast. And even if nobody listens, you're creating, and at some point, as long as you're consistent with it, you'll get the large audience that you're looking for here. And that's the point of all content creation in general. And kind of one of the main things that I think people struggle with is what you identified, is that we're concerned about, will anyone listen? Is this going to be valuable? And I think the message is, yes, you are, like, you're right to feel that way, because that's a normal human emotion. But each person, everyone that's listening to this, and you especially, have a great story to tell. And you are worthy to be able to be out there and have a presence, and people want to listen to what you have to say. And it takes very little effort to actually do it. The biggest effort is the mental one, to like actually get started, and then the harder one is to remain consistent with it. So
Yeah.
if you can do that, you can make it work.
Yeah, it reminds me of like fixed mindset, growth mindset. The
Yeah.
fixed mindset says, "Who am I to fill in the blank? Like, who am I to do this?" And really, the growth mindset is me. Like, I can do this, and you're right. And something tells me consistency is going to be a theme throughout our conversation today, because that's what it's all about. As I was thinking about what we would talk about today, while we do lean a little bit into mortgage, certainly on this podcast,
Yeah.
I think what we're going to talk about is really can be, kind of brought across all industries, right? When you're trying to build a
Definitely.
brand or do things on social media to grow your presence, or even get customers and acquire customers. So if this doesn't feel right, you tell me, but here's what I find people in four buckets, right?
Yep.
We have the people that are anti-social media,
Yep.
won't have anything to do with it. They've probably already turned this podcast off. They're probably not listening anymore. And
Yep.
that's okay. That's okay. Fair enough. So you have that bucket. And then on the other end of the spectrum, you've got people that are just crushing it. They've got it down. They know their playbook. They're doing it really well. And everybody's looking at them going, "Wow." And then I hope we can talk to the bell curve, which I think are two other
Yeah.
groups. And I think it's really the two other groups. And I'm going to kind of frame it up like it's a game, even though it's a high stakes game. We've got people on the bench that want to get into the game. They're just afraid. They don't know how. They just need some help. They need some coaching. And then there's another group that's in the game, but they're not having any results.
Yeah.
Right. They keep falling all over themselves. They keep dropping the ball, whatever the, analogy you want to use. And that's where I'd like to really camp out for a little while, is those two groups, because I think that's where we could really help people. So whether you're on the bench or you're not having a lot of results, Joe, the social media expert, tell us where you start.
Well, I think the advice is separate but similar for each of those kind of ends of that bell curve. And I think that analogy of using a bell curve is really important, because those two groups of individuals, the ones that will never do anything and those that are being really successful and have invested a lot of time and money into their social media presence, are very small. We're talking 5% at either range, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're looking at 90% in that middle bucket.
Right.
Those middle two buckets, right? And so to take that first example of those ones that are on the sidelines and want to do something,
Mm-hmm.
The advice is you got to just get started, right? Kind of like we were talking about with the podcast earlier, is if you have to just do something, and
Right.
whatever that something is, it's better than nothing. And it's the hardest thing is getting started with anything, right? I go back to college days and writing essays, or coming up with the idea for name for a podcast, or starting a LinkedIn post from scratch, right? Those first few words are always the hardest. You might have a really good idea of what you want, but putting pen to paper and starting to execute is really a difficult thing. But it doesn't have to be, right? And I think that taking that, like demystifying the successful nature of social media, is just getting started with something. And so that can be whatever you want it to be. It can just be a picture of you saying, "Hey, I'm Joe Wilson, and this is my first post on on Instagram," right? It's like Jack Dorsey's first tweet was "Hello world," right? Or this is my first tweet, right? Like it can literally be anything, but it's better to start with something really awful than wait till you think you have everything built properly to custom curate yourself so that it's perfect. Perfection is a progress killer.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, is we gotta just say, like, stop worrying about it and just do something. But on that, you still do have to have an idea of what you want to do, right? And so I think looking introspectively, you have to decide, what do you want your social media presence to look like? Do you want to use this as a way to drive new business? And if that's the case, then let's take a step back and think about just regular sales activities as a salesperson. What do you do every day as a sales rep that makes you successful? Any good coach in the mortgage space, or sales coach, or anybody, is going to say, all right, let's make a plan and execute on that plan, right?
Right.
I can remember back in the day being a loan officer, and I had a plan of, okay, I'm going to make these 10 phone calls. I'm going to write these 10 emails. I'm going to go visit this list of realtors this week. And I don't know what I'm going to talk to them about necessarily yet, but I'm going to do it. And if I do these things, I know I'll have success. It's the same thing with social media, right? I'm going to spend 15 minutes a day, or 15 minutes every other day, whatever you can commit to as an individual. Start small. Say, you know what, I'm going to do one post a week. And I'm going to do a post about, let's just use the example of a loan officer here. I'm going to do one post. I can think about 10 or 15 different ideas of frequently asked questions that I get as a loan officer, right? What does this fee mean? What is what do I have to do as a first-time home buyer? What is the tax rate in my town? Like whatever the case is, whatever you get asked all the time, just keep a little simple notepad on your desktop or beside your computer there of things that you get asked all the time, and then make a post about it. And it doesn't even have to be a video. Don't even start with a video. You go ahead and do that if you feel comfortable with it. But if not, just find an image on Google or on Canva, which is a great platform, and write a simple post. Here's a question I get asked all the time is, X, Y, and Z, and here's how I answer it. That's a great post for something that you as a loan officer, or let's go out of mortgage and to selling cars, right? Here are the top 10 things that people think about when buying their first car. Or, you know, financial planners or CPAs. You can think this advice works for literally any person who's a salesperson that wants to grow their business on social.
Yeah, and I have a premise here. I'll see if you think this is true or not. There's two areas that I personally, if I was going back to being a loan officer, which I was, but
Yep.
if I were doing it today, there's two long game plays. That's one, working my database just like a madman.
Yeah.
And then secondly, social media. But the problem is, I think people want those instant results, and those two plays aren't instant results.
Oh,
Right?
neither one of them, right?
Right.
Yeah. And
it takes a while.
no good things come instantly, right? It takes hard work and persistence, and like we talked about earlier, consistency. But it's not just about posting either, right? And this is the part that where you can have some instant gratification a lot of times. Is, you know, there are other activities that you can do on a daily basis or on a weekly basis that can help you grow your social media presence on top of posting. And while posting is important, you know, you think about your profile. Let's just take Instagram, for example. If someone taps on Joe Wilson and they look at my profile, what are they going to see? Are they going to see that, you know, I'm this, you know, the founder of Social Coach and that this is what Social Coach does? Or are they just going to see a bunch of random pictures of my kids and not really know what's going on, right? So think about that as your own professional resume. And it's important to have personal and professional on there, but like people should know who you are and what you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
At first glance, no matter where they
Absolutely.
are. But here's the point of where I was getting at is having your profile set up. That's easy. That's like simple. Anybody can do that. Posting is a little harder, but the easy instant gratification thing that you can do is engage in other people's content.
Yes, sir. I'm glad you got to this.
You do a very good job of this, Keith. And I know we exchange a lot of comments on each other's posts, and I love that. But it's so simple, and you can do it any time of the day, anywhere, at any time. And you don't have to be professional. You can just be doing it while you're laying in bed, you know, waiting for your spouse to come to bed because they're washing their face still, right? Like whatever the case is. But I follow a simple method every day, and I go through and I find at least 5 people's posts to like. I comment on at least 5 people's posts, and commenting. We could talk about commenting a little later, but there's you know, you can always find something engaging to comment, right? It's not just an emoji of a thumbs up. It's something a little more meaningful. And then, so I like 5 people's posts. I comment on 5 people's posts, and I send 5 direct messages to people every single day. And some days I don't do it, to be candid with you, but that's okay too, right? But as long as you get back on the horse to do it again. But sending those DMs, and it doesn't have to be about business. It could be to a friend or a colleague, but it's making those connections, spreading your name, your face, your presence on social to people every single day. If you just do those are 15 activities every day, and it takes you 15 minutes, that amplifies so widely, so fast, that there's sure to something to come of it in a month or 2 months or 3 months. But it does take time, and it's not instant. But that instant gratification you get is like, if I comment on your post, Keith, I know you're going to respond to me, right?
Absolutely.
And so I got your attention, right? Uh-huh. And so think about this from a personal perspective. You can get very strategic with this on whose posts you comment on, right? If I'm a loan officer and I want to get Susie the realtor to work with me, I'm going to find Susie's posts every day, and I'm going to comment on her posts. Right. And likely she's going to see that and remember, oh yeah, Joe does do loans. I should give him a chance this time.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's about building community, right? Yeah. I think that's a good word. If you're going to build community, like where you live, let's say, it can't be all about a one-sided conversation. Right. You're building an online community. So if all you're doing is posting, that's a good start. Yep. But you have to get out there and engage with people and show them that you care about them, that you're interested in them, you want to help them succeed. And trust me, the reciprocation is there. I just can't begin to describe how much success I've had on LinkedIn in a very short amount of time by doing exactly what you say. Yeah, posting is important, but it's really the engagement that I'm doing where the magic is.
And it's magic in a sense that you get the individual that has the post, you're helping them out and you're getting their attention. But guess what? Everyone else is seeing that Keith Cantor commented on someone's post, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen this happen with you too. It's like people then respond to your comment, and then all of a sudden, and then you can reshare that with your own thoughts as well. And what's neat about that is you are, like you said, you're building a community. It's not about getting followers. It's not about, treating this as solely a business opportunity and trying to get loans or deals out of this. It's about building a community and being part of that community. And that's how you really grow it.
So with that being said, I think that leads into a really good question. So we've talked about getting started, being consistent.
Yeah.
We post, but we also engage. Then what type of content? Because do I put personal content out? Do I put professional content out? Where's that balance?
It's a great question. And that's one that I think everybody asks all the time is like, okay, should I post my personal stuff on my professional pages, right? And it depends. There's no really good answer because it really just depends. And you have to ask yourself before you post anything, like, A, is this valuable? B, is it respectful, right? Like you need to, like, before you go do a picture of storming the Capitol, on January 6th. And I'm sorry if that was a trigger for anybody, but like, might not be a good idea to post that on social media, right? Like you might rub somebody the wrong way. And that's true, politics, religion, like hot topics that can rub people the wrong way. And I'm not saying don't be you. I'm not saying, avoid your First Amendment rights of freedom of speech. That's not the case at all. It's like, just remember, like, people will see what you post. And even if you're not connected with them, they may see it. And what you put out there, whatever you post is your digital footprint, and it is your resume, whether you think it is or not. Mm-hmm. A really interesting stat the other day I read was like 60+% of consumers will hunt you down and stalk you on social media before they do business with you.
Wow.
And that's incredible, right? Think about that as because consumers want to know who they're working with. They want to know that you're a real human being and that you're not some psycho that's going to ruin their home buying process, right? But that can also, so you don't want to offend them. You don't want to make them feel concerned that you're not going to handle their loan properly. But on the flip side of that too, you can, by showing more personal side of you, you're creating a connection point with people. And this is a people business, and it will always be a people business. And by showing your more personal side of who you are, your family, your likes, your activities that you do, those are ways that get people connected to you. So we got a fun story here. Like I have one of our clients, one of the loan officers at that company. She's really into corgis, the dogs, the corgis.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so in all of her posts, she uses a hashtag like corgi mom or something about that. Yeah. And it always shows up in her, she's always talking about her corgis. She's always doing this. But like what has transpired then is anybody who has a corgi that is looking for a loan is thinking about this gal. Right. And she's going to do business about it. Right. And that has nothing to do with mortgage. It has everything to do with her passion, which are these dogs. Mm-hmm. And that's the point of social media is to show your whole self so you can have those connection points to make a stronger bond that people will want to do business with you even before they're ready to do business with you. They're like, it's going to be with you.
What a great point. Whether you're a dog person or not, nobody hates dogs, right? Like, right. Everybody loves dogs. And it's certainly not identifying with something that would turn off a segment of the population from doing business with you just because somebody likes dogs, right? It's actually, it enamors people to you. Mm-hmm. And as you were talking through that whole thing, I was just thinking about balance, right? Like if you're going to be on Facebook, you can lean a little more personal, right? Mm-hmm. Instagram, things like that. I do a lot of stuff on LinkedIn, and I try to keep the majority of my stuff on LinkedIn professional. Yep. But that being said, the posts that have actually gotten the most engagement, the most likes, the most views have been the personal stuff I've put on there. And again, I try to limit it because I know kind of the purpose of what LinkedIn is. But the very first post I put on there back in August to really kick up and start this LinkedIn journey was me walking my daughter down the aisle. had over 25,000 views, 400 likes, a couple hundred comments or something like that. I don't know. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And I haven't had that engagement since.
Yeah.
Right. And it was a personal post. And so you just want people to see you as a human. You want to, they want to see that you're real, you're authentic, you're being true to yourself. And, I think that's the way you could really start to build an authentic platform speaking to the audience that you want to engage with.
Yeah, well, and I think there's actually even your point is perfect, right? It is that balance, and first of all, as a father with a daughter, like that moment, it actually like brings a little tear to my eye because I'm not ready for that. My daughter's only 15, but like I can see that, and that's an emotional connection point, right? Like that's I mean, it's the connection between father and daughter is really really strong. And that gets fantastic engagement. I've had similar things, not obviously that specifically, but the top performing posts of all time of anything are more personal like that on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
and there is a strategy behind that you can actually use when you think about the type of content that you post in creating that balance, right? So this is like, that level 100 stuff is just put something out there. Level 200 is be consistent. Level 300 is like, let's start to think strategy around the types of posts and the outcomes that we're looking for. So on LinkedIn specifically, and I want to talk about Instagram on this same topic here after this, but on LinkedIn specifically, you posted that picture of you and your daughter walking her down the aisle. Served a purpose. It served a couple of purposes. One, it showed you as a human that you got a family and that your family is important to you, and that's a great connection point. But the other side of that is those more personal, intimate things actually get a lot more reach and a lot more views. And so when you think about things to post, and each different post has different goals. Those more personal posts are great for the goals of reach and getting new followers, right? Oh gosh, I know Keith. I see him at these conferences all the time. I should follow him, right?
Right.
That's the goal of that, is to expand your community online. And then you have thought leadership type posts where you can write articles or just even simple posts that talk about your expertise and show who you are as what you're doing, right? And then there can be other ones that are more fun, that just are more connection points, or interviews like this that this is doing podcasting. One of the reasons why people love to do podcasting is now the two of our communities will see this content together.
Right.
And it's so all of the people that follow Joe Wilson are going to see Keith Cantor, and all the people that follow Keith Cantor are going to see Joe Wilson. And we have a lot of mutual connections, but there's still a lot that we are connected with that are not. So in working with other people and doing joint content, it's a fantastic strategy to show thought leadership and get a broader reach. And so the same thing is for each platform. And
you're going to touch on Instagram.
Yeah, let's talk about Instagram.
I don't know that one very well. Yeah, I'd love to hear.
Instagram's a funny thing. The stats that we see from the posts that get the most engagement for loan officers, through all the people that are on Social Coach, actually Instagram is like what we're finding is the #1 platform for loan officers to be on right now to get.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, to get business, but more importantly, to connect with realtors. But each different type, there's a lot of different ways that you can post on Instagram. There's your post feed. You can go live. You can do stories, which are short little blips. There's also Instagram Reels, and Instagram Reels right now are it's short form video, so like TikTok or YouTube Shorts. But Instagram is really pushing hard on the views on Reels. And you can get so the same thing as you posting that photo of you and your daughter walking her down the aisle is translated into doing a reel on Instagram, and doing a short form video has the same application of it gets a very, very broad reach. I'll tell you a personal example. I did a really dumb dad joke, and that dad joke has over close to 2 million views on it.
Wow.
2 million people have seen me tell this stupid dad joke. And honestly, it was my phone in my kitchen, leaning over the kitchen counter, telling a dad joke to my kids. And that's that's crazy to me, but it grew my follower base, and it got it, and, and it got more people to know who I am. And then when they came in, now they're going to see other content about what I'm really here for, right? So you can utilize those different strategies as you get more, into social media to leverage the different things that you need, right? If I need more followers, I'm going to do short form video or more personal posts on LinkedIn. If I need to get more actual deals once they're in, I'm going to post more educational or thought leadership content. So every piece of content has a purpose. And the more you do it, the more you kind of figure out what works for your community specifically.
Yeah. And there's so many tools, online, or experts and things you can follow that will give you the prompts and the direction needed to build content. But I'll just put it out there to anybody listening. It's just like everything else. You got to put in some time and work. You've got to be intentional with your work. You've got to put some time in. You've got to bring your creativity to the table.
Yeah.
And it's back to that kind of growth mindset, fixed mindset thing. I think one of the fixed mindsets we think is, I'm not like them.
Yep.
Right. And it's not really about being like whoever it is on social media that's just killing it. It's about taking what they have done. Yeah, you can take their attributes and their path and their tactics and their strategies, and then just inject you.
Yep.
Bring your authentic self to some of the methods that they have used, and that's how you kind of get started. But don't think that you can just post a few times and you're going to have 200,000 followers. It just doesn't work that way.
Keith, I can't tell you how many people have told me after like a month of posting, oh, it doesn't work for me. Social media doesn't work. Like, this is terrible. Like, I'm quitting. And it's like, well, hang on there. Let's slow your roll a little bit. What kind of results are you expecting after posting 3 times?
Yeah.
Right. And it is. And that's all good things take time.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's flip over just as we kind of close out. You're a social media guy. We've all seen the social dilemma. We know that we kind of know the dangers. I think sometimes we fall into them, but we know the dangers and the positives of social media. Where do you fall on that from a personal standpoint? How do you live your life in the social media world?
That's a great question. I think it's changed throughout the years. And on the social dilemma, on that movie documentary on Netflix, it took me a long time to actually sit down and watch it because I was afraid of what I was going to hear. I didn't want to be told that social media is bad and that it's like because that's literally my livelihood with this technology company, right? But I ended up watching it and really found it interesting and validated a lot of some of the research that I've been reading about it. Social media can be amazing for you if treated properly, right? And you brought this up earlier, the balance in all things. And, we can use the other phrase like moderation in all things, right? And with social media for you as a professional, when used properly, can change your world, right? It can take you from a small producer to a great producer when used properly and consistently. It can be a great thing for you to connect with people in your community and to highlight your experience. It can be a great thing for you to find new people to connect with and new restaurants to try. And like, there's a lot of really awesome things that come with it. But there's also a really dark side of social media as well. And I think we have to I'd be remiss not to talk about that. And, as a parent of teenagers and younger children, I often get asked by them, when they can get on social media. And I get asked by parents of my kids' friends, like, hey, what do you think about this? And it seems counterintuitive for someone who has, a livelihood based on social media to have this stance, but I don't let my kids on social media, and they're not going, and it's not going to, and they have cell phones and all that kind of stuff. I'm not like this super prude, mentality, but like, we're very cautious with it because if you just Google us really briefly, you're going to see study after study after study of the detrimental effects of long-term use of social media, particularly in young people. And it's because, and you think back to when you and I were growing up, we didn't know when our friends were getting together without us, right? We didn't know
Right.
all the wonderful vacations that people went on and do all these things. We just kind of were blissfully unaware of life, and we still had our own struggles of not feeling like we're good enough, or that we're missing out all these different things. But that is amplified to the nth degree now when all you see all the time are these perfectly curated posts by all the people around you having seemingly a much better time with zero problems.
Right.
And it's a particular concern with our youth, and when as children are developing, their brains are not fully developed until they're well into their 20s, right? So having those negative emotions and thoughts at a younger age is very detrimental to their success, long-term success, mentally, emotionally, physically, and in all senses of the phrase. So I think there's just the big caution is, just make sure that you're using it properly, right? And you can abuse it, and I know a lot of people do abuse social media in general, but I think that when used properly, it can be the best thing for you, and it has to be used thoughtfully and intentionally.
Yeah, absolutely. Everything with balance, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Yeah,
I want to thank you for coming on today. Maybe we can get back together
for sure.
soon. It's been really fun. I've learned a lot. I've learned I might need to jump on Instagram.
You
I
do. Yeah, we'll get your account set up and let's get connected today.
I mean, like literally, I did not know that was the number one platform for mortgage professionals. I imagine Facebook is probably a close second, but wow, me on Instagram. What about that? And I really enjoyed hearing the story about how Social Coach has filled the void, and I'm really proud of the results you guys are doing. Really happy for you, and
Thank you.
thanks for coming on today. Really
Yeah, thanks for
appreciate you.
having me, Keith. I appreciate
Yeah.
it.